Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Kelley Direct Online MBA webinar today that's covering graduate career services and how it's been impacted by COVID. Thanks for joining us. My name is Sarah Wanger. I'm the Director of Admission for Kelley Direct Online MBA and MS programs. At the webinar today, I'm going to be joined by a couple of my colleagues who I'll introduce and now on the next slide. We have two colleagues, one of which is our Associate Director of Admission, Megan Reese. She's going to be taking your questions today on the back end. So thanks, Megan, for working there and taking your questions throughout the webinar. So as things come up, feel free to use that Q&A function at the bottom of your screen to send in any questions that you have. For our esteemed guest, Eric Johnson. Eric is our Executive Director of our Graduate Career Services Office here at Kelley. And he's going to be answering your questions as well as questions that I have for him and other questions that Megan has for him. So again, as you think of those questions, use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen to chat those in, and we'll take those throughout the time. So I'm going to let Eric introduce himself and give you a little bit about his background in the graduate career services area in just a second. But first, I want to make sure that we cover some information about how graduate career services and the Kelley Direct Online MBA could impact you. So you see a few stats on your screen here about the return on investment for our Kelley Direct Online MBA. We're really proud of the fact that our students get to work with the #1 ranked graduate career services office in the world, according to Financial Times in 2020. 64% of our students have said that they earn promotions either while they're in the program or within 6 months of graduating, with an average salary increase of around 29%. And that average salary post-graduation at $122K, that's fantastic. But there's so much more to what you're going to get out of our Graduate Career Services Office than just a salary increase. So I am hoping that what you're going to get out of our webinar today is a little bit more information about how our Graduate Career Services can help you both during your MBA experience and then, of course, within your career beyond your MBA. And really what you're going to get out of it more than just that salary increase or more than just that promotion, because it is so much more than that. It's really about the experience of accelerating your career. So what does that look like, and how is our Graduate Career Services Office going to help you should you choose to apply to the Kelley Online MBA? So with that, I'm going to jump out of the slides and let's just have a chat. So let's have Eric introduce himself, tell us a little bit about himself and the Graduate Career Services Office. Welcome, Eric.
Thanks so much, Sarah, and good afternoon or good morning, everybody, depending on where you're at in the world. I am Eric Johnson. I'm the Executive Director of the Graduate Career Services Office here at Kelley. I also am a adjunct member of the Management Department, and so I teach organizational behavior, leadership under change, and I'm also a certified executive coach, and I do a lot of coaching both for Kelley as well as on my own, honestly. So a lot of what I bring to the table right now is based on what we're seeing here within the Graduate Career Services Office, but also a lot of what I hear from executives and senior leaders really all around the world. Just a little bit about me and then a little bit about my team. I've been with Kelley now for a little over 10 years, so I've seen some ups and downs of the economy for sure, and changes with regards to immigration and changes with regards to policy and all kinds of stuff. I started here as a coach and as a teacher in the marketing department before moving into the role that I'm in right now about 7 years ago. Prior to coming to Kelley, I spent a decade with Eli Lilly and Company in a variety of different functions. So I managed my career internally fairly successfully. I started in market research. I moved to brand management. I did a role in sales, I did a role in operations. And my last role with Eli Lilly, I was the chief marketing officer based in the United Kingdom. Throughout that entire time, I was also the lead recruiter back to Kelley for the graduate programs, in particular the MBA programs. And prior to that, I was a Kelley MBA as well. So part of what I think I bring to the table is the ability to see graduate recruiting from all of the seats, right? I've been a student, I've been a recruiter, I've been a coach, I run the office. As part of my role as the executive director, I have a team of exceptional coaches whose only job it is to coach the students in the Kelley Direct MBA program. as well as the specialized master's degrees. And then I also lead the corporate relations team. And so I oversee the group that's responsible for building, expanding, managing all of the relationships that we have with companies who recruit our students all around the world. And the Kelley Direct program is extremely important in our corporate relationships. And the combination of making that front and center when we're talking to companies, as well as having a dedicated team of coaches, is one of the big reasons why we're the #1 career services office in the world. Employers love the Kelley Direct program. The students in this program bring an awful lot of great skills to the table. It's been certainly a pleasure to coach them. So I look forward to sharing a lot more about what we're seeing in the market and about how you work with us, but that's just a brief overview of me and a little bit about my team.
Fantastic. So one of the questions that I'm going to start with, and this is because it's probably one of the #1 questions that we get in the admissions office, is, oh my gosh, this is an online MBA. Is an employer going to look at this differently? So let's start with that before we jump into COVID and all the impacts there. Let's just start with the question that's on everyone's minds.
Yeah, I love that question, Sarah, because that's one of the big myths that I think surround online programs right now. And I will tell you, 10 years ago, there were some questions about whether the quality of an online degree was the same as the quality of an in-residence degree. Those questions are not around anymore. Our corporate recruiters do not differentiate from a student in the Kelley Direct MBA program from a student in our in-residence MBA program. And I think that's true of other top schools with regards to how they view the MBA program. What I think sets Kelley apart a lot is that this has been a huge emphasis for our corporate relations team over the last 5 years, with a specific regional-based sales force for the last 2 years, where we went out to really all corners of the country to promote this program, to expand the relationships that we have for this program with very well-known companies. And I would say right now that when we are talking with the company about job postings or about openings that they have, we are absolutely hearing that they are as interested in the students in our online program as they are in any of our in-residence programs. And in fact, if anything, I think that what I hear from our recruiters is that they feel like the online students actually give them some advantages. First, they tend to have a little bit more real-world work experience, which is extremely important, especially at a time when the hiring manager has a little bit more power than they did 2 or 3 years ago. And so they can be a little pickier and they like folks that have a little bit more experience. The second thing is, depending on how, of course, a student is paying for their MBA, the fact that an online student in theory can start a job anytime, right? Could start in November, could start in February, could start in May, is a huge advantage. A traditional MBA recruiter usually goes to campus and is making a job offer in October for a start date of June or July. And at that, they don't even know 8 months in advance what their workforce is going to look like, what jobs they're hiring people into. And the fact that they can come here now with a experienced hire job posting, that they can hire somebody for a role, they know what that role is, they know who the manager is, they can match that skill set up, they can get that person started sooner and adding value sooner, is actually just, it's a massive, massive advantage to the students in the online program. So the one exception would be investment banking. I think investment bankers like students who have done internships for sure. And, that's hard to do when you're a working professional, but on the whole, recruiters really don't see this as having any lesser quality or the students having any lesser candidacy. I mean, this is truly a very sought after population.
In one of our other webinars that we have posted on our website, one of our students who works at Amazon, he specifically mentioned his employer wanted him to do an online MBA, was really pleased that he chose the Kelley Direct program because it highlighted that he was able to multitask. It highlighted he was able to set priorities. He was able to balance working full-time with Amazon and doing his Kelley Direct online MBA. So I thought that was a really great kind of anecdote that he was able to share during that student panel webinar, which really highlights that the employer perception of an online MBA obviously has drastically shifted.
That's exactly true. I mean, one of my favorite recruiters has this line. He says, "You can't coach initiative." And what somebody who is balancing a full-time job with a full-time, degree program, one of the best degree programs in the world. And I know we demand a lot of our students. And in many cases, folks have families or other outside interests, and your ability to successfully manage all those at the same time sends so many strong messages about what kind of employee you'll be when you're done with the program, or even during the program, of course. So yeah, for sure.
Exactly. So I'm going to just remind everyone that we are going to take questions throughout the webinar today. So do use that Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. Megan Reese is busy responding to and taking your questions. And I'm going to throw one more question at Eric, and then we'll take some live questions. So if you have questions and you're thinking of them now, use that Q&A function. But one more question before we dive into that. So this is kind of a question that now is going to relate to the theme at hand around COVID. So what are you noticing? What have been the really key points that have just stood out to you about what's different about the market now?
Yeah. All right. Well, this isn't going to be a short answer, so I'm gonna try not to give a massive, boring lecture here, because that's not my forte. But I do want to give a thorough and accurate response. So, let me break down what people see, and then let me maybe debunk a few things based on what my team and I are seeing, because I think there are two different layers. At the surface, I think what a lot of people are seeing is happening in the job market because of COVID are the stuff that shows up in the headlines in the newspapers. And so what a lot of you notice is that unemployment is still hovering at a fairly high rate, one of the highest rates it's been since the 2008-2009 financial crisis. While we did see unemployment filings hit records in April and May and then begin to come down in June and July, what we've seen is those have stabilized, and we're still seeing about 880,000 unemployment filings every week, in the current market. And obviously that's a huge concern, right, for a lot of folks, and it's a sign that there's still some weakness in the market. Organizations have been releasing their earnings. Right now, over the last 6 weeks, folks have been, companies have been releasing their Q2 earnings, and you're hearing a lot about budget cuts. You're hearing a lot about delayed product launches. You're hearing a lot about local businesses, which aren't earnings, obviously, but they can be buyers of some of the major suppliers of materials. Local businesses are going out of business. And you're even seeing that some of the big, like box retailers, for instance, are shutting their doors, right? I mean, some that were sort of hanging on by a thread, like the, J.C. Penney's of the world and whatnot, who did, I know, manage to find a buyer, but companies like that are going out of business, right? I mean, this has been the final push. And so the result of a lot of that has been hiring freezes, salary freezes, and that's the stuff that's getting a lot of press. And that is real. I want to be clear, those are real. But if you take a look a little deeper, what you see actually are a few other trends that I think are sometimes being covered up by some of the meta economic data. So the first thing is that what we're noticing here with budget cuts, hiring freezes, et cetera, is that they're very industry dependent. And in that regards, they're a little different than 2008, 9, and 10, where, as big banks were going out of business and people were losing their homes, you saw a relatively even impact across the board. Now, you kind of see that there are some industries that are just taking off and other industries that are really tanking. And examples of businesses that are taking off would be online retail. And I'm not just talking about Amazon, who's being extremely successful, but companies who've been able to adapt to the online marketplace. So a Walmart has actually done a phenomenal job. The grocery store chains like a Kroger or Publix, or online grocery store chains like Instacart and others are just absolutely taking off. You're also seeing healthcare and all facets of healthcare. So we're talking about manufacturers, we're talking about hospital systems, we're talking about insurance companies, have really just blossomed during the, obviously it's a health crisis, right? And, they're hiring a lot of people, but they're hiring people not just for frontline roles, right? Nurses and doctors, which are extremely important, but they're hiring people for strategic roles, right? Supply chain and data analytics is a great example. One of the ways that a hospital system has to battle a health crisis is to figure out the most efficient way to move people through their facilities. And so that requires folks who have an understanding of Six Sigma methodology and, queuing theory and things like this stuff we teach in our classes. You know, insurance companies like a Humana or a Cigna or some of these are using advanced data analytics in order to help figure out what treatment protocols are getting the best outcomes, right? Because they know what patients are taking, they know what which physicians are treating them, they know what patients are spending, oftentimes even on over-the-counter stuff because of healthcare savings plans and things like that. And they can actually tell which hospitals, which doctors, which treatments, et cetera, seem to be the most cost-effective and seem to be getting the best outcomes. And then they have to speed that information back out into the system in order to try to more standardize the protocol for care. And you've got to be able to think like a business leader in order to drive those kinds of situations. And so we're seeing a lot of hiring in those areas. And then companies that, you know, specialize in sanitation, right? And, you know, this would be Clorox, which is sort of an obvious example, but also a company like Ecolab, which is one of the largest industrial cleaning companies in the world. They have customers, includes, you know, Marriott hotels and places like that. And they're just all over the place right now with regards to how they're making new products, distributing new products, you know, creating new channels for distribution. And they've just really grown like you wouldn't believe over the course of the last 6 months. Obviously, that happens at the expense of things like hospitality and travel, which a lot of folks know because you've heard about it, right? I mean, people aren't flying, and so Delta is, you know, laying people off. American Airlines is on hiring freeze, things like that. But underneath that, we're also seeing some impact on what you would call premium brands. And so, you know, companies that make high expense cereal or granola bars or drinks are seeing, you know, some of their products being replaced by generics and store brands, especially because the quality of those is seeing as increasing right now. And so, you know, luxury goods like a Louis Vuitton, big brands like companies like Procter & Gamble and others are seeing a flattening or a decrease in some of their sales as people's discretionary income, especially blue collar discretionary income, is beginning to go down. And so that's taking it on the chin. And then companies that are largely seen as a bit of a discretionary expense. So that would be consulting or marketing agencies. And those are organizations that are really restricting their hiring right now. They have a lot of employees that are not being assigned to projects because companies, you know, a lot of companies can't afford to bring them on boards right now. And so, you know, what we try to look at when we're coaching our students or when we're working with employers is trying to figure out, like, where do we match your skills? Where do we match your values? Where do we match your interests with what's available in the market? And so if you've always had your heart set on brand management, well, now might be the wrong time to go into cereal or premium cheese, but it might be the right time to go to Lysol or, you know, Buff City soap, right? Which is a startup, Kelly startup actually, that's getting into, you know, that marketplace. And so, you know, the meta analysis of unemployment and hiring freezes and budget cuts is really disguising the fact that there is a massive sector of the economy that's growing and a massive sector of the economy that's suffering. And what we're really trying to do is help move labor from the places where it's not needed to the places where it's really needed. We're also seeing some companies are reinventing themselves. And the good example of that would be alcohol companies that are now making hand sanitizer. And you know, who would have thought, right? But you know, the thing is, if you bottle vodka, it cleans it off your hands, right? And you can slap another label on it and call it hand sanitizer. And all of a sudden you're like, wow, this is great stuff. But seriously, like, that's what they're doing, right? And we've got companies of all sizes in that industry that are beginning to use some of their assets in new and creative ways. You're seeing companies who are in the manufacturing sector who maybe made clothes, who are now making PPE, right? They're making masks, they're making vests, they're making gloves. Even companies like General Motors and others have reinvented some of their product lines in order to provide, you know, products that can be used by hospitals and doctors' offices, nurses' offices. And that's been really fascinating to notice. And those companies need engineers, and they need product managers, and they need salespeople, because just because General Motors makes a mask doesn't mean somebody's going to buy the mask. And so, you know, they need people who know how to sell, market, distribute. They need to know how to price it. So they need the finance and marketing folks, et cetera, right? And so those are creating new opportunities as companies reinvent themselves. And then the last thing that I think is interesting is the world of entrepreneurship has really taken shape. I think a lot of folks had this idea even 60 days ago that now is the wrong time to start a business. And I'd say now might be the wrong time to start a business where you're selling a $6 app that doesn't really add a tremendous amount of value. And maybe it's always a bad time for that, one could argue. But if you're able to come up with an entrepreneurial solution to one of the problems that we're having right now, it can be a great time to launch a business. Cardinal Spirits is a local restaurant and liquor manufacturer here in Bloomington, and they were actually one of the first liquor companies to begin to make hand sanitizer. I mean, they were doing it before some of the Brown-Formans of the world were even thinking about it. And that's an example of a great entrepreneurial idea that yielded huge value very quickly, and took advantage of some excess capacity and turned it into something profitable. And I think any organization right now that can, learn how to solve some of the world's larger problems with creative solutions, you can be extremely successful. So, but you just have to focus on where the problem is in order to provide a valuable solution, right? So I think those are, it's a probably an hour and a half lecture on the economics of crisis boiled up into 9.5 minutes. But I think that's some of what we're seeing in the marketplace right now, and some of the ideas and principles and knowledge that we're trying to bring into some of our coaching conversations as we're trying to help folks better manage their careers. So hopefully that helps a little bit. And obviously I'm happy to take any questions on any of that. So.
Fantastic. Let's jump right into it. I have lots of questions for you, but I'm going to let the attendees actually ask their questions. So maybe you want to take it over.
Yes, thank you, Sarah. We have some fantastic questions coming in. Eric, I would love to get your input on this question. So we have someone asking about geographic location and how that is taken into account for career services. So we are an online MBA program, but let's say someone is applying and they're a student located in a southern state. How would that impact their career prospects with Kelly? And before you answer that question, I do want to share that 90% of our students live outside of Indiana. So that's one important tidbit. But Eric, could you speak a little bit about geographic location and how that's taken into account?
Yeah, absolutely not a problem for us. Wherever you're at, we can help you out, period. In addition to the fact that 90% of our Kelly Direct students are from outside the state of Indiana, we also have 110,000 living alumni who are spread all around the world, 70 or 80 countries. My office is also responsible for supporting alumni with career services for life. And then we have a variety of other programs that have a very similar student makeup and include anywhere between 10 and 40% of their population that's from around the world, and many of who want to go home someday. And so we have a very global focus with regards to our career services. For the last 2 years, we did have a regional sales team that we had one person based in Atlanta, one based in Boston, one based in Los Angeles, and then one who was based in Bloomington who covered the Midwest. And their responsibility for 2 years was to build new relationships with companies in order to provide, new roles, and in particular for Kelly Direct, because we wanted to be in Atlanta and Jacksonville and Nashville and Memphis and Birmingham and Orlando and Miami and all of these cities in between in order to help our students in the Southeast. They did a tremendous job. They built relationships with more than 1,000 companies. Those jobs have been redesigned because we have other needs right now, but we still have a very robust employer relations team that are continuing to manage and grow those relationships. So if you're in the Southeast, coaching is coaching, right? Getting a job in Texas, getting a job in Florida is the same as getting a job in Minneapolis. So the process is the same, and we have the best coaches in the country that you will work with. But if there's a city down in your neck of the woods that you specifically want to be in, I can guarantee you we have corporate relationships. We have an active alumni chapter. We probably have existing students with whom you can network. We have people who've recently gone to companies who are in those markets, and we can absolutely help you take advantage of your own network and take advantage of our network no matter where you want to be. Yeah, and I've lived in Birmingham, I lived in Florida, I lived in Nashville. My personal network is very robust in the Southeast. Just some data, we actually send less than 50% of our graduates to the Midwest. Minneapolis, Chicago, Indianapolis, obviously are big cities, but they're also big cities because those three comprise more than 300 of the Fortune 500 companies. Minneapolis actually happens to have more Fortune 500 firms than any other city in the country. And people are surprised to hear that, but it's true. So part of the reason why we have a lot of people who go to the Midwest is because there are a lot of Fortune 500 companies in the Midwest. But we send almost 20% of our graduate students from in-residence programs to the East Coast and 24% to the West Coast. And the odds of landing on a coast are even better if you already live there. So I am very, very confident in our ability to help a student no matter where you're located. And I even have success stories in places like Boise and Tucson, and you'd be surprised. So yeah, absolutely would love the opportunity to help you out for sure.
Thank you. We've got another question from someone who I think is really concerned about the job market right now. So are you seeing a decrease in job offers, or is it just that there are fewer jobs available on the market right now?
Right. I would say that there are not actually fewer jobs in the market. I think there are fewer jobs in certain industries and many jobs in other industries. A lot of the unemployment claims that are being filed right now are being filed out of the service and transportation industries. So restaurants, bars, even though people are coming back, massage parlors, hair salons, places like that, they are nowhere near the sort of volume that they had before. Cruise lines, movie theaters, live music venues, these are the places, athletic, think about stadiums and any place that hosts events. They're not happening right now. And so the vast majority of the unemployment figures that we're seeing on a regular basis are happening in those kinds of industries, right? Service industries where large crowds are sort of critical to being successful. But if you're interested in marketing or finance or supply chain, right, more the white collar type roles that you would obviously pursue an MBA to go after, there are tons of jobs. Healthcare, retail, online retail, manufacturing is still big right now. I mean, very big right now. We're still seeing a lot, in outdoors, right? Like anybody who makes outdoors equipment, anybody who makes outdoors apparel, the REIs, North Face, Patagonias of the world, Bass Pro Shops. I mean, even within retail, there are definitely, like brick and mortar retail, there are places that are really thriving right now. So I think the challenge really is sitting down and saying, how do we combine what you are specifically interested in doing with what the job market currently has available to you? If you were to say that it was your dream to be a singer on a cruise ship, yeah, you're going to have a tough time getting a job offer right now, right? But if you're interested in more of the business side of like, I really want to work in a place where I can create positive customer experiences that lead to memories of a lifetime, well, there are still tons of opportunities for that right now. We just might be looking at jobs with the National Park Service instead of with Six Flags or Disney right now. And that's okay, right? It's the same skill set. It's the same kind of personal experience for you. It's just that the setting looks a little bit different because that's where the jobs are right now. So, the more direct question that I get right now is now the wrong time to think about leaving a job that I feel fairly comfortable at? And I would say, well, no, I think it's always a good time to consider an opportunity to advance your career and put yourself in a position to be better compensated for the skill set you bring to the table. We just need to be careful about what types of companies we look at in order to make sure that you don't, spin your wheels and waste your time. But there are opportunities in this market right now, for sure.
We also have, so you've spoken a little bit about making a career change. Javier wants to know, can you please share some success stories for graduates not pursuing a career change, but just want to accelerate the career on an already steady path?
Yeah, I love those. Like, I'll take them every day of the week. I'm going to just be really clear, right? Because I'm biased. I'm a Kelly alum. I work at Kelly. So, I know we're selling, but I promise you this, go talk to our counterpart, go talk to my competitors. I know them at Michigan. I know Florida doesn't have them. I know them in all the, like, I know where they're at. And I will tell you, they are not doing this right now. If you have a successful career and you are looking to advance your career, the message you're going to get is our faculty are going to teach you all the skills you need in the classroom. And that is also true at Kelly. And we spend more than half of our time in graduate career services specifically helping students who are trying to advance their career at their companies. We have a phenomenal relationship with the program office. The Dean Suite believes greatly in my office. And so as a result of that, we offer 3 different 4-credit classes as part of the curriculum at the Kelly School of Business. And one of those classes is actually called Career Navigation. And it was specifically built to help students who are trying to better develop their career. And I mean, I had a huge hand in building this course. A lot of it was built based on the ways that big Fortune 500 companies do talent management, do succession planning, do talent evaluation. We cover the difference between performance and potential. We cover developmental action plans. We cover the difference between mentoring and coaching. We talk about how to ask for stretch assignments. We talk about how to negotiate for pay increases. Like, we get in all of that stuff. And continuing on that one, we're the only career service office in the world where the school invested in making each coach who was available at the time to go through full certified executive coaching. And more than 2/3 of our coaches who are dedicated to Kelly Direct, and nearly 90% of the coaches across our program or our office are certified executive coaches, which means that in addition to the work they do here at Kelly, they have all the skills necessary to help people better manage themselves and better manage their careers, especially if they're trying to improve the impact that they have at their workplace. So if you're kind of sitting there saying, man, I really want to work with a coach in an office that can help me move from manager to director or from director to vice president. If I'm seen as a technical expert and I want to be seen as more of a general manager, if I desire to be on my company's top 50 wave list, right? Like, and how do I do that? This is the place that you can come. I know Stephanie Gray shared a story at another Kelly Direct webinar not too long ago of a guy named Michael Bauman, who was a high-rising executive, middle manager actually at Whirlpool. And through the coaching, he worked with our office. He became a senior executive. He has subsequently left Whirlpool to become an even more senior executive for an ice cream manufacturer. And that's just one of hundreds of examples of ways that we've helped people advance their career at the organizations that they're at. And really, I hope that's everybody someday, right? Like, part of our goal is if you are a switcher, we don't want you to always be a switcher, right? We want you to switch and then advance. And if you're advancing, there may be a place in your career where, you know, you've decided maybe it's time for something different, and we want to be able to help you then too. So the nice thing about the fact that you start with us is that you can continue with us throughout your career as an alum, and wherever you're at, switch, navigate, etc. We can certainly help you out. So yeah, I would say I'd love the opportunity to work with you too. I think that's something we do very well.
I've got plenty more questions, Sarah, but if we're running out of time, you let me know.
I'm good if you're good.
Awesome. Let's keep taking them, because it seems like we have a
All
lot of interest here for asking your questions. Thank you.
Yeah. So you spoke a little bit about, moving up, accelerating your career, and you mentioned switchers, but we do have a couple questions about that. How can Kelly help me switch and move into a different career, and what does that look like?
Sure. And this is one of those ones where I want to be honest. A switch it's going to depend on how much you want to change, right? Let's just start with that. So part of our bread and butter is helping people make a change in their career path. And there are a couple different things that you're going to change as you go through this, right? One would be your change your function. And an example of that would be somebody going from engineering into finance, right? Or somebody going from sales into consulting. So that would be considered a functional change. Another example of a change would be an industrial change, right? So that would be somebody going from healthcare into consumer goods, or somebody going from financial services into hospitality. And then you might have a geographical change, right? So somebody living in Atlanta who wants to be in San Diego. And what I will tell you is we can absolutely help with any of those things, right? A geographical change is really about your network. An industrial change especially if you're staying within the same function, is really about how you frame your hard skills, right? Like the marketing competencies or the financial competencies in a way where you can show you add impact in any industry that you're working in, right? Like product management to some degree is product management, but you have to understand the nuances of an industry. So it's a bit of a technical change. If you're making a change across functions, so marketing to finance, for instance, then that becomes about your ability to also highlight your transferable skills. So what makes you good at strategy? What makes you good at implementation? What makes you a good teammate? What makes you good from a leadership perspective? How do you influence others? How do you give and receive feedback? How do you demonstrate initiative, right? All of that stuff that we talked about. And we know how to do it. We know the questions. We know how to coach you to tell your story in the most effective way possible. What I'll tell you is if you're looking to change all of those things all at once, you have an enormous amount of work cut out in front of you, right? Like if you are a salesperson in Jacksonville, Florida for healthcare, and you really want to be a strategy consultant focused on supply chain improvement in the online retail space in Seattle, that honestly, that is one of those situations where you probably should have a really robust conversation with your admissions team, with the career team, and with an in-residence program admissions person, just to get a sense of how important is it that I do an internship? Because the bigger, like if you're really trying to truly reinvent yourself, you might need 10 to 12 weeks of work experience so you can demonstrate like, I can do this, right? It's a trial run. You can do trial runs within an online program, but they're harder to come by, right? Because it's project-based work. You might have to take some time off and do some volunteering. You might have to quit a job, do a part-time job, and then come back. Like, it's doable. We have examples, but that's really the role of an in-residence program, is to help somebody who's trying to reinvent themselves, not just get the education, but also do the experiential learning so that they can prove they can do this. But if you're changing one of those three or two of those three things, you just need to start early, be coachable, and engage with as many things that are offered to you as possible. So with our office, that's the coaching, it's the networking events, it's the access to alumni and recruiters and the networking opportunities and the classes that we teach. And then I would say within the Kelley Direct program, it's getting involved in things like Agile and the other immersive programs. It's thinking about the value of double majoring or picking up a specialized master's degree in addition to your MBA, so that you can, make sure that you're taking advantage of all the learning and experience in the program. We work together with your academic advisors, right? They're the ones that answer the questions about classes and majors, but we can give you some idea of what some of the different competencies might be in a field that you would have to master in order to get a job there. So we can absolutely help people who switch. In fact, again, we do that a lot. And part of what we need to gauge is how far is that jump that you're trying to make, and then how early can we get started, and how can we work with you on a timeline that matters and in a capacity that fits, so that you can successfully make that leap. But yeah, I mean, it's half our students are switchers, half are trying to move up in their firm. We're number one because we can successfully work with both. But I don't want to give the impression that switching is something that just happens because you get an MBA, because that's not the case. Like, you're not just going to get a new job because you have the letters at the end of your name. You're going to get a new job because you figured out how to sell your skills, both hard skills and soft skills. You've been able to take advantage of the program in ways that are experiential and academic, and you've learned how to tell your story in a networking setting in such a way that people want to advocate for you. And if you're able to do those things, you can be very successful in Kelley Direct.
Great. I think we have time for one more question, Megan, if there's more that seems like we could wrap up with, and then I'll just kind of cover next steps for admission to the program. Thank you so much, Eric. This is amazing. But let's take one question for Eric before I wrap things up.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. That last answer was so insightful, very helpful.
Appreciate it.
And finally, we just want to ask about COVID and the pandemic. You talked a lot about how that's going to impact businesses and the job market. We had a really good question from Shauna, who wants to know, do you predict any new job opportunities will come out of the pandemic, not in spite of it?
So yes, and actually, what's been fascinating about, there was a great article about this just 2 weeks ago. I think it was Google or Amazon, one of the big tech firms, just hired a new executive person in HR who's responsible as director of work from home initiatives. And I think it's going to be an interesting field within HR to think about, like, how do we maintain and create our corporate culture within a work from home environment, right? And how do we, leverage all the data that we have available about when people are choosing to engage with work, and how are they choosing to communicate with each other, so that we can make sure that we're properly recognizing and promoting our employees while also trying to avoid burnout. So I think within HR in particular, on the side of culture, as well as on the side of data analytics, you're going to see just an enormous field explode as companies try to figure out how to attract, retain, motivate, compensate, reward, recognize their people. And so that's going to be just absolutely fascinating. It's already starting, and I think that's going to be fun. I think the world of consulting will adapt to this as well, and not just human capital, which I think will be big. But again, there's just an enormous amount of data that's coming out of this, and some companies are thriving and some companies are suffering, and the ability to help organizations improve the way that they engage their workforce, the way they deploy their workforce, will be big in a work from home environment as well. And I think that's going to be really kind of a fascinating situation. I think that as companies look at different ways that they reinvent themselves, you'll see new divisions open up within companies. And so that's going to be a big deal. And I think also we were already seeing the world of supply chain. So this would be process efficiency, process improvement, Six Sigma, like those kinds of roles were already some of the hottest jobs in the world. And what's happened now that you have a more dispersed workforce, more dispersed customer base, those opportunities are only going to take off. And a good example is back in that retail space. Walmart has always been known for having a bit of that warehouse model, right? Like they ship everything to warehouse goes to the stores. They've used their stores more as warehouses, whereas Amazon has really used warehouses as stores. And what you've seen over the last 6 months is that Walmart has adapted to carry less inventory in their stores and more inventory in regional locations, so that people can still get items when they need it without having to go into the stores to do it. And they've been extremely successful at that. And that's required a lot of new positions in order to make those kinds of things happen. So yeah, I mean, we're seeing whole new fields get born as a result of this. And these are not things that are going to go away at all. And I mean, we're already hearing companies who previously said, we didn't think work from home would work. And now that it's working, we think it's going to be something we offer permanently. And as a result of that, a lot of these different positions are going to continue in perpetuity. So more on that over time for sure. We'll be talking about this for years, but definitely there will be new fields and new jobs as a result of this for sure.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Eric. I really appreciate it. I know that we had one question come in that is a fantastic question that I want to make sure that I cover, which is how our program has been impacted by COVID, because we get this question all the time, and we also have gotten it over the chat today. So really quickly, before I cover next steps, how has our program been impacted by COVID? We're pretty much business as usual. We've been a fully online MBA program as far as coursework goes since our inception in 1999. We were the first to market there. So courses are still fully online per usual. Our faculty work with our students in a fully online environment, both large and small group settings for our live class sessions. Usually those live classes are over Zoom, so not much has changed there. The two pieces of our program that have changed. So traditionally, many of our students, if not most of our students, have gone on an immersion trip, and obviously travel is on hold. So that's one biggie. We usually have immersion where we're doing live kind of case consulting trips to places like we've done Ireland, Greece, Thailand, Vietnam. We're planning one for Brazil once travel is okayed and approved again. So we have lots of different immersion opportunities, and obviously that's postponed. The other biggie is Kelly Connect Week. So Kelly Connect Week is 1 week at the beginning of your MBA program and 1 week towards the end of your MBA program, where you come to Bloomington, Indiana for 1 week and you do a live case competition with a real business client. So you are working, consulting with a real client. We've done clients like Riley Children's Hospital, all sorts of different clients globally and domestic. So those are on hold for right now, and we offer virtual Kelly Connect Week opportunities now that we hadn't in the past, but so far they've been really successful. People have really loved the virtual opportunity, although we have lots of students who've already done one Kelly Connect Week here in Bloomington, loved it so much, and they're just going to postpone as long as they can so that they make sure that they can come back to Bloomington for Kelly Connect Week. So right now those are postponed. We do have alternative options available, but hopefully we'll get Kelly Connect Weeks running pretty soon here. But otherwise, other than those two changes, again, it's pretty much business as usual. Our faculty are used to engaging with our students virtually. The career coaches are used to engaging with our students virtually, so this really isn't much of a change. So some next steps that I wanted to cover on this slide here, just really quickly as you're thinking about, is this MBA program the right one for me? These are kind of the three things that I really like to make sure that people have their ducks in a row. So the first thing is just preparing for this program. You got to think about, what's my support network? You want to look into scheduling, because you are going to have to devote some time to this. Our program is rigorous. It's a challenging MBA program. We're #1 for a reason. Our students get a lot out of this program. That's because we throw a lot at you. So you got to make sure that you have time to do the online MBA. And then also looking at ways to finance your education. If you're looking at employer reimbursement, look into that now. Start talking with your employer, with your HR, seeing what your options are. Really try to get those ducks in a row before you fully jump into the program. And again, our admissions staff can help answer questions about that, can help kind of prep you for that process. So call us anytime, we'll walk you through this. Then gathering your documents, of course, for admission, taking standardized tests, so GMAT or GRE. Really, those are the things that you just need to prepare for that admissions process. So we will be looking for a resume, a personal statement. We are looking at for a GMAT or GRE score, although we do have waivers available, and there's more information on waivers on our website. So there's a lot of information on this slide. If you have questions, let's go to the next slide, because that's where our email address is, and want to make sure that you have that before we wrap up. So if you do have questions, email our admissions staff at KDirect. We would be happy to follow up with you, schedule some time to meet with you one-on-one virtually, and really make sure that you get your questions answered. So I want to say thank you so very, very much to my two colleagues, Megan Reese and in particular Eric Johnson, for joining today. It was really wonderful to have you. Your answers, as always, are super insightful and really showcase how, when you come into this program, you will be working with absolutely the best in the business. Your career coaches are, of course, our executive director. They know exactly what's going on in the market. They have their fingers on the pulse. They're going to be able to walk you through this process. So if you have questions, let us know. Otherwise, go back to your day, and thanks for joining us today.